How are you today, Dexter? Oh, good. Oh, I'm very glad to hear that, Dexter. Yesterday, the focus was on pitch and chords and the relationships between notes. Today is going to be about rhythm and how you can add more syncopation to your strumming when you're playing even simple songs to add expressiveness. Just to go over some fundamentals first, the rule of thumb for rhythm on guitar or ukulele or on it seems like most strummed instruments is that your hand will go down. This is a downstroke on down beats and then upstroke on up beats. So if let's stay in normal like 4/4 time, 4 beats for a measure of 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So this is fundamental. This is just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have quarter notes. So if you divide those quarter notes in half, you get eighth notes. So you can play those eighth notes on an upstroke. So like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now the way I do this is I use my fingernails on the downstroke, and I use kind of a combination of either my fingernails or my thumbnail for the upstroke. Usually I find myself using my thumbnail. So these fingers and then the thumb. But you could also do your fingernails for both. The way I do downstrokes on ukulele is with my fingernails and upstrokes with my thumbnail. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Another thing you could do is if you divide eighth notes down, those become 16th notes. So you could even you can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and. So basically you're doubling the speed that you're doing that up and down motion. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4. Okay, so those are the fundamental subdivisions we'll be working with. That's what it's called when you break rhythms down into different lengths of time, is subdivisions. To make sure your rhythm really stands out and to make it, easy to groove to, you should definitely have emphasis on the second beat and the fourth beat. This is standard across pop music, across jazz. Most American pop music, you'll feel that emphasis on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And we like doing this in jazz because it helps you feel swing. So if you want to do swing eights, the way you might hear in like country or jazz, you do the same pattern I showed you, but you delay the upstroke a little bit. You hear it has a little bit of a bounce. So do you hear how I'm accentuating the second beat when I do that? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I accidentally dipped into what I wanted to talk about next. So, here we have the accentuate on the 2 and the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's add eighth notes to that. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. there's swung eighth notes with the accentuating 2 and 4. Those are considered strong beats. And again, it keeps you connected to the groove. So that it's not just like a metronomic beat, 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 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it helps establish the feel of whatever you're playing. You know, if you're going at a mid-tempo or an up-tempo. What you can work into your playing after that is syncopations. Syncopations are when you emphasize notes within the subdivisions. So if you're playing, you know, the downbeat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, a syncopated beat would have more of those eighth notes in between, skipping over the downbeats. So let's say, for example, 1 and 1 and 4 and. And one thing I like to do when I do that is just use the base of my palm to mute the strings, so that instead of doing that downward motion, like it's good practice, like if you're strumming a beat, if you miss a downbeat, your hand should still be moving down. Just like how if you're playing on downbeats, even when you're not playing upbeats, your hand is still moving up. Down, up, 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 down. So now we're syncopating by putting those by putting our strum on the upbeat. So we could take a rhythm like 1 and 4 and 1 and 4 and 1 and 4 and 1 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. So even though you're muting on 2 and 4, that still establishes a groove. So even if you're not playing, you still have like that mute, or you can even knock while you mute, and that adds a percussiveness that can still left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day, and I never lost a minute of sleep when I was worried about the way that things might have been. Big wheels keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. So that's an example of something syncopated, where you're both emphasizing 2 and 4 to keep that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and taking advantage of that upstroke to add some swing, and to make it sound a little more exciting. So once you get in the habit of just always having your hand move kind of like a metronome, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, then you can experiment with skipping certain beats. So try 1, 2 and 4 and 1 and 4 and, or 1, or even simpler, just, you know, thinking about alternating between subdivisions. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and, or 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3. So if the numbers you're counting are always on the downstroke and then the ands are on the upstroke, then you're in a good place. And even if you like don't stay consistent with like when you're downstroking and upstroking, so like if you're going back, if you might have heard me when I was singing, maybe fudge the consistency of the pattern, like. So you can be creative, and if you're keeping that hand motion consistent, just the motion of down, up, then you can be creative with which beats you miss and which beats you play. Don't feel like you have to confine yourself to the strum pattern as long as you're staying consistent with the tempo of your hand. So I think that is everything technical that I wanted to talk about. So now let's do some examples. So I think, I forget when, but it was like ages ago, Chloe and I were talking about ukulele knowledge that we each wanted to share with each other. And she said one song she's been working on is Jolene. So I think that would be a fun one for us to do. And you might also be hearing that even if I'm not emphasizing a downbeat, I'm also kind of touching it a little bit with my fingertips. So if I slow it down. So if that helps you stay in tempo, is hearing the downbeats that you miss, then that's totally cool. And that can add more percussiveness. That can add texture to whatever you're playing. One and two and one and yeah. One and piano, one and piano, one and piano, one and piano. And what's cool about Jolene also is if you listen to the recording, there's also that melodic thing on top. So if you have your first finger on the second fret, you can use your third and your pinky to play, or your second and your third, to play that bit on top. So hopefully that's something you can have fun playing. Let's do another example. When I told my wife I was gonna have Jolene be a part of this, my wife recommended, well, why don't you also do Jesse's Girl, as long as you're doing really, really lesbian songs, which it's true. Jesse's Girl and Jolene both have very big lesbian energy. So for Jesse's Girl, you're gonna have to be nimble with the left hand for switching between chords. So it goes D, A, B minor. So B minor, you have third finger, fourth fret, and then you bar the second fret. And then G, A, D. If you don't want to do those quick changes in between, you can also skip those A's and just do the D, B minor, G, D. So the pattern for this is pretty consistent. But again, you want to stay locked into the groove. If you listen to the recording, the guitarist is pretty consistent with his rhythm, which is. So it starts on the and of 4. So we have a pickup beat. So we're not starting on 1, we're starting a little bit before 1. So if we go, let's just stick on D for now, just so we can get the rhythm down. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Which I think was similar to when I was playing Proud Mary earlier. And 2, and 3, 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 and. So again, we like emphasizing 2 and 4. So that 2 you're already playing, so you can just emphasize that. But the 4, you can do that little knock. You can mute it. And 2, and 3, 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 and. Jesse is a friend. You know he's been a good friend of mine. But lately something's changed and it's hard to define. Jesse's got himself a girl and I wanna make her mine. And she's watching him with those eyes, loving him with that body, I just know it. And she's holding him in his arms late at night. You know I wish that I had Jesse's Girl. And it's a little different in the chorus. 1 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. Where can I find a woman like that? Just G, D, G, A. Where can I find a woman like that? And that the strum pattern isn't as important as just, again, locking yourself into the groove. So that's fun. Let's do one more example. I thought of this one just as, I don't know, gallows humor. Things have been feeling apocalyptic, not gonna lie. And one of my favorite songs about anxiety and apocalypse would certainly have to be Bad Moon Rising by CCR. So again, I'm emphasizing 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And again, you're even though I'm not playing anything on 3, my hand is still going down as if I am. So a good key to staying locked into the groove. You might see me delay my hand a little bit, but it's still like, might jump a little bit. And this is an example of the eighth note swinging a little bit. So you hear how I'm kind of delaying playing the upbeat. So instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's a swing feel that we like to have. And again, emphasizing 2 and 4 can help you lock that in. 1, 2, and 4 and 1, 2 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 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put it all together. I see a bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see hurricanes and lightning. I see bad time today. Don't go around tonight, 'cause it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Thank you guys. It was really fun to do this. Peace out. It was very, very fun to do some ukulele-ing for you guys. And stay healthy and safe out there.